Welcome back to Jersey Matters. It has been 4 years since Superstorm Sandy. So have we recovered? How are the towns doing along the ocean, the ones that were the hardest hit? Here to talk about that is Mayor Matt Doherty of Belmar. Sir, thank you so much. Good to see you again.
That's great to see you again, Larry.
How are we doing 4 years later?
Much, much better. You know, one of the things we made a real effort to do was to get all of our families back home. So at the peak of Sandy, we had about 1,300 families in our 1 square mile town displaced. But over weeks and months, and it took about 3 years, we were able to get all the families back home. There is still some construction going on now. For instance, after Sandy, we rebuilt 1.3 miles of boardwalk. Today, we're still putting the finishing touches on the pavilions that used to be up on the boardwalk. One will be done by the end of December, the other one by the end of January. So we're still recovering and rebuilding. The other projects we have are hazard mitigation projects that are being financed through the federal government. One example is a big outflow pipe that's going to go from one of the lakes into the ocean. It was destroyed by Sandy. Now we have to pump the water out anytime we want to get it out. But putting in this new pipe will alleviate the concerns of flooding for neighborhoods for decades to come. We recently got awarded a grant for that back in 2015. Still going through the permitting process, but hopefully we'll go out to bid on that. And that's a project for 2017.
Some cities were able to make steps they wouldn't be able to make, to rebuild in a way they would not be able to rebuild without Sandy. There are some projects that weren't possible until Sandy, like one that you mentioned. And also we learned so much about what can happen in these storms that we are able to do some preventative things to stop the devastation from Sandy. First of all, are those three things fair? And do you have examples of that?
Absolutely fair. And a great example is the boardwalk itself. So the previous boardwalk before Sandy was built during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, kind of a hodgepodge of construction. Never had a chance against the storm surge that came. The one that was built this year was built by one contractor, done the right way, with federal dollars that we never would have had to build the boardwalk. Those dollars were available because we had to rebuild what was destroyed by the storm. That's built up to modern codes and standards, FEMA guidelines, so it's built to withstand another storm surge like that from Hurricane Sandy. You can always build to what was there before. If there's a worse storm, you know, it may not be able to contend with that, but at least you know you're built to what destroyed it to begin with. The same thing with the pavilions. The pavilions we had before were old and dated, and they were kind of falling down, to be honest with you. But we didn't really have a lot of money to put into them for the capital improvements. Along came the federal government to finance and to pay for the bonding for those new pavilions. So it's projects like that, and also people who are rebuilding their home. Now they're elevating, you know, some of it with grant money. I think you're going to see in our town and the rest of the Jersey Shore rebuilding that's built much better than what was there before Sandy.
Towns got some money to do projects and make things better. There were people that fell through. I don't know whether to call it a safety net from the federal government and the state, but there were people that fell through and suffered. Do we know how they're doing now?
The federal government response for a natural disaster, when it comes to a government entity like a town like ours, is fantastic. If it wasn't for FEMA,
Belmar has no complaints.
Belmar has no complaints. The problem comes with residents. So as good as FEMA is for governments like Belmar, is as bad as they are for people who own homes that were destroyed. So whether it's flood insurance, FEMA, REM, there's such a gap between what needs to get done and what is getting done. So to give you an instance, when we rebuilt the boardwalk, we went out and we bonded for the money. We worked with FEMA on project worksheets to ensure we were doing it up to their provisions. We paid the contractor, we took the receipt, gave it to FEMA, and FEMA paid it for us. For homeowners, it's the reverse. For homeowners, you first got to apply for the money, you got to wait to get the money, you got to go through a whole grant process before you can start work on the project.
What a despicable loophole that is. It's worth you coming back and talking about it again. It's a full topic. Would you be able to do that?
I would absolutely love to do that. And the one measure we took in Belmar, because we had two families, both single moms, one with 2 children, one with 3 children. They both had flood insurance. They were shortchanged. They both applied for REM. It took forever. None of them got money from FEMA because they had flood insurance. So there were all these gaps that people kept falling through, and because they didn't really have a lot in savings like most middle-class families to rebuild a home, they were homeless for an extended a period of time. And what we did was we put together as a community a fundraiser. Our goal was to raise $200,000. Each family was $100,000 short after you added up all the money they had to get back home.
It's a wonderful thing you did. It shouldn't work that way. That's the problem. I think it's a wonderful thing. We're out of time. I apologize, Mayor, but I would love to have you back. Mayor Matt Doherty of Belmar, thank you, sir, so much. An interesting way that one community is using Uber. Wait till you hear this as the Jersey Matters continues.